Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Cubic Dimensions. And today, to keep it confusing, we have a special guest also named Matt. Matt, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Matt, you there? Well, this seems to be the first technical difficulty of the day. Here, one second. Well, this is... Hello? Huh. All right, try rejoining. Sorry about that, folks. I do not know what that is about. So we will hopefully fix that momentarily. And that's weird because we were just talking before we went live and it was working fine. Who knows, honestly.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right.
That was weird.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So I was just saying, introduce yourself.
I'm Matt. I am a fellow student of other Matt. I was going to call you Matt C, but I realized that I can't do that because I'm also Matt C. So,
Well, luckily we're the only two people in this discussion, so it won't be that confusing.
yeah, fair enough. Is there anything else in particular about me personally that you want me to say?
Or any fun facts you want to throw out there?
uh, Politics, philosophy, and economics major. Probably gonna also just minor in philosophy again to be redundant there. That's fun. I'm a musician. Ran for office one time. Lost. That's a little less fun.
Yes, but still fun.
Pretty fun. Yeah, it was pretty fun. Knocked on 600 doors. Spoke to probably 600 people, maybe more. Anyways, yeah.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
All right, so let's dive right into the stories. So
Yeah.
the big story of this past week, obviously, has been that NASA has discovered what the Independent has quoted as the holy grail of solar systems, meaning that not only so in our solar system, we only have one planet, that's Earth, in the habitable zone. The habitable zone being the area but in the orbit of a star, in our case the sun, obviously, that can have planets that support life. And this solar system is interesting in that it has 7 planets and 3 are in the habitable zone, as well as NASA believes that all 7 could possibly have water on them in some form or another, which is truly unique for a solar system, especially since all of these planets are quite close to their star. The star is kind of small, and they're all roughly the size of Earth, a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, but pretty close to the size of the Earth.
All right, so can I just redefine the habitable zone for you? It's basically the spot in the orbit of a star in which or on which a planet can have liquid water on its surface. Um, we've found a lot of planets in that area before, but what makes this system super special and very exciting is that it's seven small planets. It's very unique to find that. Normally, we find, some large planets, something like a mini Neptune is what they've been calling them now. Um, and it's really very interesting to see that they found seven that are, rocky and small and could have conditions quite similar to Earth. And with the next generation of telescopes going on the air in the coming decade, um, we'll actually probably be able to take optical images of these planets and see what's going on there.
And correct
Because
me, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're also unique in that they probably have a similar structure to the Earth in that they have rocky surfaces, whereas other planets that we've found in that area tend to be gaseous.
not really that area, more just generally throughout the universe. The most common type of planet is what they call a mini Neptune, which is something of a planet with, maybe like rocky surface 2 or 3 times the size of the Earth. But then, since it has so much mass, or it'll have more gravity, and it, ends up pulling in a very thick gaseous atmosphere that would make for conditions very different than Earth's. What makes these ones special is that they're actually small enough that they most likely have an atmosphere of a similar thickness to Earth's, and that's very unique throughout the universe, especially, to find seven of them orbiting one star, and three of them are in an area where they could support liquid water on their surface.
It's really really exciting, especially because I believe they're only 40 light years from us.
Well, yeah, to put that in perspective, though, that's trillions of miles. That would be 40 years going at the speed of light. And the big question now is whether or not we can go a tenth of that speed with very small probes to uh I forget the name of the project. It's Mark Zuckerberg, Stephen Hawking, Starshot Express, whatever, regardless. But their goal, which would be the fastest thing humanity has ever sent out, is a tenth of the speed of light. So we most likely wouldn't be going to these planets anytime soon. But like I said, with the next generation of telescopes coming online in the next decade, we'll most likely be able to take pictures of these planets and study their atmospheres and see, if there's some sort of chemical trace of life there.
Yeah, which is really exciting. When I said only 40 light years, for those of you listening, uh, as Matt pointed out, like we're still not going to, if we ever do visit the system, by the way, which is called the TRAPPIST-1 system, we're not getting there anytime soon. But in uh, the relative space of the universe, they're pretty close, even though it's still a ginormous distance, a huge distance. It's still
Huge.
they're still relatively close, for that. And so, an interesting thing is that, as you said, the speed of light, or light speed is, or light years, I should say, is how long light takes to get from one place to another. So if it's 40 light years, that means it takes light from that system to get here 40 years. So we're actually looking at these planets 40 years ago, or what they were 40 years ago. But at the same time, again, relatively speaking, in terms of astronomical actions and changes, they're probably not much different than they were 40 years ago. So, like right now, they could be different, but it's probably very, very minimal differences.
The only thing that would really be different is if one of them, say, had an asteroid impact or something in the last 40 years. Um, that would be something that would be a big shift. But beyond that, they're most likely almost the exact same as they were. 40 years seems like a long time to us, but in cosmic terms, that's nothing. Our own Earth is over 4 billion years old, I want to say, and I can tell you the universe is 13.8 billion years old. So 40 years is really just on that kind of time scale. It's nothing.
Exactly. It's a spitball in the ocean.
Yeah,
But yeah, exciting stuff.
very
Uh,
exciting.
Unfortunately, that's the only exciting news for this week.
I mean, if we were
Uh,
if we were born 1,000 years from now, maybe we'd be going there. Wrong time.
Space. The final. No, okay. Not getting onto
Yeah.
that. Get
All
on to the next story. So,
right.
big news from last week was, of course, correct me if I'm mispronouncing his name because it is very confusing to me.
I got you on that.
M-
Milo
Milo
Yiannopoulos. Milo
Yiannopoulos. Okay,
Yiannopoulos. Yeah.
that's his name. So Milo
Yeah.
Yiannopoulos, infamous to the left as a provocateur, uh, uh,
A troll.
a troll, yeah, if you will. Uh, Basically, someone who just says stuff that that appeals to the alt right, that upsets people, and it's partly to push an agenda, partly to just do what it does, which is upset people.
I'm going to disagree with you on the
And
agenda. I think that if he could get a bigger reaction out of the right, he'd be a hardcore leftist.
that's true. I'd have to agree with that. But anyway, so he got caught up in some very, let's say, characteristically disgusting comments regarding pedophiles and child predators, in which he joked about the subject and said, I don't know the exact quotes. I should probably know that. Are you familiar with exactly with what he said? Because I don't
Um, well, so
want to.
I watched the video, and what he joked about was that when he was 14 or 15 had a sexual relationship with a priest, and that maybe the issue isn't that priests are molesting kids, that there's not hot priests doing it, and he said, and he refused to name the priest and said, no, he's great, I wanted it too, which um, he basically just he defended pedophilia in certain contexts, and he said, no, this was great, I think that the world, basically, people could benefit from more of this, something along those lines. um and he just casually joked about it, and you know definitely, that was one statement where, like I said, I don't think he believes what he's saying, but I think that he might have taken it too far that time.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the big news of this week is that he said that, and that caused him to lose book deals. It caused him to get disinvited from speaking at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, and as a result of all this fallout, he resigned as a contributor and editor at Breitbart, uh, in alt-right publication that Steve Bannon, the now White House chief strategist, used to head. So I find this very interesting because, so first of all, I'm glad to see that so many people are against pedophilia. We're in a weird age where that's reassuring. What I find concerning is that, so up until this point, there are a lot of people out there that say things that I disagree with. That being said, I'm willing to have a discourse with them. I'm willing to hear their perspective and maybe even change my perspective based on it, maybe not, but just try to understand where they're coming from and reach some sort of common ground. This is not the case with Milo Yiannopoulos because literally what he's done is that he's outed trans people at their college campuses for no reason other than to humiliate them and to make sure that they are publicly scorned and that they basically have this hovering anxiety over them for the rest of their lives. And what concerns me is that he did that. That was basically what he built his career on, and people had issues with it. But for the most part, he was still allowed to go where he wanted to go. Yes, he was stopped at some campuses from speaking from student backlash, but for the most part, he was able to move about freely with his entrepreneurship and his business ventures. But apparently, making these comments about pedophilia was the bridge too far. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I think that that's a very, very strange way to look at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I never thought about that. That he made all these outrageous comments about different groups of people, yet they stood by him until this one of all things. Like, why stop here, basically? And what's interesting is that he made those comments on a radio show like 2 years ago or something like that, and it just came to light now, and it's been there for years. The video I saw was published in something like 2014. But the thing that I find interesting is that here's this guy who he literally made his whole career on being an agitator, basically being a Frankenstein monster of bad Twitter feeds. Um, and people reacted by they legitimatized his behavior. He he got the job as a editor at Breitbart. He is allowed to speak at like a public, like an intellectual on college campuses. He's on the news. And like it's like, what did he actually do? Like, why do we need this? Well, I feel like this is symptomatic of some sort of anger in the populace if they want this aggressive of a figure who's doing nothing besides agitate, and that sells. I don't know. I'm thinking of a good way to say it. I don't know if that one made sense though.
No, I can see where you're coming from, and this whole thing is really just disturbing because the response I've gotten from a lot of people regarding the alt-right movement, if you will, is that, oh, well, we need people who are speaking the language that average people speak. Similar things have been said about President Trump. And I agree with that. I agree that we need people who are more plain spoken, who can speak to the pains of average people and the frustrations of average people. At the same time, you need to you can't be a bad person. I'm just going to say that. Like
Yeah.
saying outing other people unnecessarily, just bullying people for their views, their feelings is completely unnecessary. And
Well, I mean, sorry, continue.
I was just going to say, yeah, and like I get it. People think PC culture has run amok. And to some extent that it has. I will concede that. But what we really should be focusing is just having frank, honest discussions, but being decent people at the same time. So,
Yeah, that's what. Oh, my bad.
oh, no. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, so what I was going to say was, I think you're right that we need to have frank and honest discussions, and maybe, it is frustrating to hear people talk, um, you know, in this like elite or just overly politically correct way, if that's how these people are perceiving it. I think I could see the appeal to someone who is plain spoken and, puts it in the same simple terms that anyone else would. Um, at the same time, though, I think that, you know, what you're being plain spoken about saying is another thing. If you're plain spoken as Mexicans are bad, and or in Milo's case, fat people are gross, or Steve Bannon, Muslim Islam is a fascist religion, those kinds of things. I don't think that those things deserve a place at the table of public discourse.
Yeah, they don't. They don't at all. And you know, some people some people who are part of uh, who are right of center will say, "Oh, we feel like we can't express our views. We feel like we're going to get attacked for it."
Well, if your view
That's
is an attack, then I
yeah.
mean,
Well, the thing is, like, if it's for people shouldn't be attacked for their views just because they differ from yours. That's completely understandable, and that's completely a reasonable thing to ask. But when you're saying that a certain group of other people aren't human beings, that they don't deserve the respect that other human beings do, unless you're talking about like rapists or murderers, then you're wrong. And you don't deserve to be airing that view. And you should be afraid to say what you think because it is wrong. Now, if you think that the federal government should focus on reining in the deficit, or you think that uh, the U.S. border with Mexico should be strengthened, go right ahead and said that. Say that. Yeah, people are going to disagree with you, and you shouldn't be attacked for that. We should have open discussions about that. But if your position is that certain people aren't human, then that's a completely different animal.
yeah, if you're, I mean, I think that it's ironic to me at least to watch people on the right say, "Oh, these liberal snowflakes, like all the alt right rhetoric about people on the left about SJWs and safe spaces, and then at the same time they're saying, oh, we don't feel safe to say our views. You're persecuting us. It's the exact same thing, just imagined, in my opinion, because who's the one who historically, I mean, for the last, what, 2,000 years has been, you know, destroying other people's lives as white men. And now here they are saying, oh, we're the ones with the raw deal in America. It's really ironic to me.
Yeah, the victim card is always a fun one to play, especially when you're not in that position.
Yeah. Well, it's, in my opinion, a lot of the reason why these people want to call themselves victims is that then they don't have to feel guilty, um, for the things they do that genuinely victimize other people. Like if you want to round up Mexicans, um, or stop legal residents from entering the country, uh, it's a lot easier to sleep at night saying, "Oh, no, I'm the victim," than, "Oh, I'm doing something that's actually genuinely oppressive objectively to another class of human being."
Definitely. All right, well, it's time to move on to the next story, as much as I'd love to go around and around. Um, but speaking of playing the victim card, uh, there's been a lot of news recently about different things having to do with the press regarding President Trump. Uh, he so in what's called the White House gaggle, that is a not recorded, just sort of quick, brisk briefing. Usually, the White House press secretary does it with different White House correspondents from news outlets. Again, it's usually not as big of a deal as the filmed press conferences, but they're still important. Well, there was a significant problem with this past week's gaggle because reading from a Politico article, the White House on Friday blocked a number of news media outlets, including CNN and Politico. I know the New York Times and the LA Times were also among those, from an off-camera briefing with Press Secretary Sean Spicer, while allowing a select group of journalists that included many conservative outlets. The White House had earlier planned on having an on-camera gaggle with Spicer in the briefing room, but the administration later in the day changed it to a restricted off-camera gaggle in Spicer's office. So again, they're not as big of a deal as the usual press conferences, but they're still used to inform the press of what's going on. Similarly, this week, President Trump announced that he's going to be the first president in, I think, 30 or 40 years to not attend the White House press briefing. Or not press briefing, I'm sorry, White House Correspondents' Dinner. So he's been on a bit of a media attack binge as of late. And as an article in The Nation pointed out, this is very concerning because obviously the news isn't perfect. Mainstream media outlets aren't perfect. CNN for the past probably 10 years has been the favorite punching bag of everybody in the political world because of their typically softball questions. And there's also a lot of early reporting that is false, not verified, just to get ratings or just to make a print deadline. But more often than not, they do good jobs. They do relatively good jobs. And especially in the last few months, they've just been reporting what's going on. And of course, a lot of people have been finding that negative, especially about the Trump administration, because that's pretty clear. And yet somehow he's spinning it as the media attacking him, which, even if they were, that's their job. That's the media's job, is to be the go-between between the public and the powerful in order to keep them honest and make sure that they're doing their job. Again, can they make mistakes? Absolutely. No one's a god, no one's perfect. But saying they're out to get you doesn't exactly make sense, nor does it really make you seem like a mature, learned human being.
Well, so in my opinion, I think, I think that that's more of a reflection on the Trump administration than it is on the media. If they're feeling attacked by, the press's coverage of them, which is by and large been pretty accurate, it's like maybe that's an issue that they're having with themselves. You know what I mean? If most of the if most of the coverage is perceived as negative, then that's because they're doing things that are, not good. The other thing that amazes me, though, is that Donald Trump, at the same time he's saying, I'm going to go very hard after the people who are leaking these documents that hurt me politically, is saying that, the reporting is fake news. It can't be both. Yet his supporters believe both claims. Oh, yeah, these people shouldn't be leaking documents that hurt my president. But, I mean, if it's fake news, then they're not real documents. They're not real leaks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that it's a huge problem if he, continues this war with media. Steve Bannon said it's going to get worse for them every day. He promised on the campaign trail to open up the libel laws so he could sue the media for negative reporting of him. I mean, that's really worrying that, he's trying to filter his image. I'm sure that presidents in the past have, selectively chosen who can be part of the press gaggle and, come have a briefing in their office or whatever. I'm sure that that's happened plenty of times in past White Houses. It's just the pattern of attacks on the media. Um, and like you said, the media is supposed to, just take a hard look at these people and, give us, give the public a fair, balanced view. Even like if they do something wrong, then the media should be saying, "Hey, this guy did something wrong." The other thing that is worrying about him trying to weaken the institutional integrity of media is that you end up by doing that you end up with what we have now, the so-called post-fact world where we can't agree on if climate change is real, if literally, and I did see this recently, if the earth is round or flat. I mean, it's by weakening what is the trust that people have in what is considered a fact. We're being very regressive, and that's incredibly dangerous when it comes to things like climate change, where we only have limited time to act. I mean, I don't want to have to tell my grandkids someday that, yeah, we couldn't agree on what was real, what was, what the scientists were saying. We didn't believe the scientists as a whole. Some orange guy came up and and he told us that it wasn't true, so we didn't believe them. And now you are fighting wars with your neighbors for water. I mean, like,
Well, I think the reason why he's going into this is because he realizes that he's so bad at this political thing. They tried to work with the media because it's not like politicians don't stretch the truth or lie to the media. Of course they do. That happens all the time.
my
And
that's not my point.
I know, but what I'm
All right.
saying is that I think what they tried at first was they tried to do spin, which is what politicians often do, and they're just bad at it.
Alternative facts.
Yeah, alternative facts,
Military
uh,
operation is an adjective.
which I'm gonna get to in a second, like just completely asinine stuff that obviously everybody knows is bull. And so he's just like, all right, screw it. I'm just gonna go all out. I'm gonna go all out, and uh, oh, I need to go. I need to go to Florida every weekend because I need to chillax for a little
Well,
while, and I need, you know, uh, I need to go for a campaign stop because I need to make sure that people still agree with me and all this bull.
uh,
So
can I just stop you for 1 second? You said that everyone knows it's false. If you look at the polling, a significant portion of the country doesn't know it's false. In the area where we live, people know it's false, but in other parts of the country, people genuinely believe what this guy's saying. I just think that we need to, acknowledge that.
yeah, you're right, and it's really scary. It's really scary that people actually believe this stuff because it's just inherently false. If you want to talk about, like you said, people just can't agree on the facts, which is absolutely terrifying to me because debates are supposed to be do about an issue.
Yeah.
Obviously, your position can be let's not do anything about it. I think that's a bad stance to take, but it is a stance that you can take. Nevertheless, it's about dealing with the facts at hand and finding a solution from them. It's not about debating whether or not the facts are real to begin with.
Yeah, I
And
mean, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. And now people think that they are entitled to their own facts.
exactly. I mean, and it's unfortunately this isn't a new thing. For quite a while before the Trump days, I'd still hear people talk about how, oh, the Democratic Party is the party of racism. And I'm like, well, how? And they say, oh, well, the Ku Klux Klan, they're Democrats. I'm like, yeah, back in 1924, times have changed. Democratic Party is no longer the party of the KKK, nor is the Republican Party. I mean, there can be an argument made that the Republican Party pursues racist or racialistic policies, and the Democratic Party doesn't actually all the time have the best interests of minorities. But no party is still saying, hey, we want segregation, hey, we want slavery. That was a long time ago, and the demographics uh, and the leadership have changed very much. You look at a presidential election from 1900 and tell me how it compares to our most recent one. The maps are so topsy turvy, and that's because there's been a lot of change in this country in that 100 or so year time period. And yet
Um,
people don't want to realize. I bring up and they're just like, oh no, there's still racism, still you're racist. Oh,
well,
okay, well that's not true. You
I wouldn't go that far. I'd say that the Republican Party, especially things like the voter ID laws. You look at Texas last year, a court struck down the Texas voter ID law that was pushed very aggressively by the GOP for being specifically targeted towards African Americans. That is racism. I think that the Democratic Party, speaks a little bit to minority concerns to get the votes, but I don't think that they really care about these people. I think that it's not overt racism, but there is, uh, you know, the fact that they're just lying to these people and they're still only doing things that are in the interest of white people. I think that there is some degree of racism in that. Um, and then just to speak to what you said about, you know, the fact that people haven't been able to agree on the facts since before this presidential election. My argument to you would be that, what we're seeing now is a long time coming. I think that it's true that people haven't always been able to agree on the facts, but by not even, by weakening trust in science and, you know, reporting and other such things, we're now at a point like it's reached breaking point. I mean, you said, like an issue, a debate is to, look at the facts and come up with best way to tackle an issue. But if, we're standing on different ground than the opposition now, they have their set of facts and we have our set of facts. And I think that both sides need to realize that maybe some of it isn't necessarily true. But, regardless, we need to actually be able to come to a consensus on if the earth is round, which I mean it is, but like it's amazing that we need to go back to that point that, as a society we're in this regressive mode. And you look at innovation, my personal feeling is that the next iPhone, the next Microsoft, the next PC, those kinds of things, those technological innovations, those aren't going to be happening in America anymore if we continue to hate science and continue to hate, knowledge as a culture. And that's worrying.
Yeah, it is. And the worst part of it is that Donald Trump's big thing is that he wants to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, as most of them have gone overseas. Well, in order to be leaders in technology, like you're talking about, in order to be leaders economically, we shouldn't be getting those jobs back. We don't want those jobs back. those jobs aren't going to do anything for us. We are now at the point where our economy has become a service economy, a manufacturing economy. So our priority should be training people in service fields, in fields where we can actually succeed. We've moved on. And that doesn't seem to be his focus. His focus, he's only had a month in office, but his focus seems to be me, me, me. Everybody else is bad. We're going to, we're going to repeal Obamacare maybe at some point, possibly have a replacement, and hey, we're going to build a wall and it's going to be amazing if we can figure that out at some point. I don't know.
Well,
It,
I think that the one thing that you're saying that's wrong is, or at least in my opinion, is that we shouldn't be worrying about the people who lost those manufacturing jobs, things like that. Like we shouldn't be worrying about that. I'm from Rhode Island.
oh no, I'm
Yeah.
definitely saying, those people
Well,
are, I'm definitely worried
yeah.
about those people, but I'm saying those jobs aren't coming back.
No, the manufacturing jobs aren't coming back, but not all of those people are going to be, in the innovation market. I mean, like I said, my home city, more or less, of Providence. You go downtown, you look around. Uh, they built a mall. I want to say 30 years ago now. You look out the window of that mall and you see just abandoned factories, like literally just across the highway. Um, and a lot of those jobs, when they left, that hurt people, that hurt the state economically. I mean, we still haven't really recovered all the way. It's still, it receives the most federal aid in New England. Um, it's, I mean, it's like, it's got some issues. So we need to figure out what we could, like, how to help these people. Like, there is a lot of real pain there, but I agree with you that Donald Trump's focus isn't the fact that the people who voted for him did so because of a real pain or like a genuine concern. I think that he's not worried about those people. I think he's worried about himself and, anyone who makes him feel good, or, the people who come to his rallies. I think he's concerned about keeping them coming to his rallies, staying popular with his little subset of the country. And that's why he's pushing for the wall and all those things. I think that it's all about popularity for him, and it's not about, the messy work that actually is governance.
Yeah, I saw a great quote. I don't know. I think it's in one of the articles, but I can't remember which one, in which he said something to the effect of like, who knew governing or who knew healthcare was going to be this hard. I was like, yeah, exactly. We knew this was going to be so hard because, or most people experienced in politics knew it was going to be this hard. I mean, it's took President Obama what a year and a half to get Obamacare through the Congress, and he,
2 years, and it was half of what he had originally wanted, basically.
yeah, and no Medicare for all option at all,
Yeah, no
uh,
public option.
no public option, uh, completely watered down mandate, all this other stuff, and it took him 2 years to do that. Meanwhile, Trump's just like, oh yeah, we're gonna have all this amazing stuff. Maybe, I don't know. I'm tired. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
let me
maybe you
let me go
shouldn't
to
have been 70
Mar-a-Lago
when you
for
ran
the
for
weekend.
president.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm not going to go that far. I know that you were a Bernie Sanders supporter. He's 74 years old. Um, I mean, I'm not going to say that age is specifically an impediment to someone being president. I just think that Donald Trump didn't appreciate the gravity of the position when he was running. You know, it's it's fun to campaign. You would agree with that, I'd imagine. It's fun to campaign, but then, you know, for him, once you win, It's now this job is way harder than I expected. I didn't know that the president did all of this stuff. I don't want to do that. I
I
mean,
thought he just made laws.
I thought he was, the emperor from Star Wars.
Well, that's surely the way he acts.
Yeah. um, but I don't think that he really appreciates the gravity of saying something like, "We're going to build up our nuclear stockpile." He says that pretty casually. He doesn't realize the way that the rest of the world takes that is, very serious. Um,
Typically, you do that if you're looking to pick a fight.
I mean, not necessarily if you're looking to pick a fight. I think that, um, you know, most countries that have developed nuclear programs have done so to deter other countries that have nuclear programs from dropping nukes on them. Um, but I think that what he's doing is he's looking at it through his typical worldview of, am I the winner, am I the best, or am I the loser? Um, and he wants to be a winner of nuclear. I'm,
Winner, nuclear.
yeah,
Nuclear. Uranium, like atom bomb, like nuclear bombs.
nuclear
That
things, and you can do bad things. Um,
I
yeah,
saw that. I saw that clip, and it had the caption "When you don't do the chemistry reading."
I
And
actually, you shared that
I'm
on
sorry.
you shared that on Facebook. I saw that.
Yeah, I tagged my old chemistry teacher in that.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's
And then you realize it's the president, and it's a little less funny.
yeah. I mean, it can be both reassuring. It can be both uplifting and frightening to know that you probably have a higher IQ than the president of the United States. But
Um, I mean, I
and
mean,
when I say, hmm?
hello. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that I just cut out again.
No, you're good.
Oh, all right. I don't know. I wouldn't go as far to call him stupid because he has to be smart in some way to, you know, ascend to the presidency in such a short time. Uh, I just think that he didn't do his reading before he decided to run. I feel like, someone dared him. They're like, "Hey, Donald, you won't run for president. You won't." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, 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 watch me." I feel like it was just like some like spur of the moment decision. Like, I
Well,
don't know.
if you see, did you see the there was a documentary I've mentioned a few times on here. Uh, I think it was a Frontline documentary that
Divided States of America.
no, it was
Oh, that
it
was
was
good.
on Trump and Clinton shortly before the election. 2 hours long, great thing. If you haven't seen it, go watch it after this. And in it, they start talking about Donald Trump's story at the 2011 White House Correspondents' Dinner, where the whole birther thing had just happened, and he was obviously proven wrong. And at that uh, dinner, President Obama essentially rips him a new one and is just like
Yeah,
totally making fun of him, and
yeah,
he's having none of it. And the voiceover is that I believe of some advisor of his or something, and it said that's when Donald Trump decided that he was running for president. And I was just like, this feels
yeah.
like a James Bond movie. Like this does not
Um,
make me feel comfortable.
yeah. I saw the Frontline documentary. It was the Divided States of America, and they talked about that experience and Seth Meyers ripping into him, and the fact that went from this like hero of the right to just the butt of the joke.
Yeah,
Was really influential in his decision to run. And I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I remember talking to my uncle about this. And my uncle wasn't a Trump guy, but he's a Republican though, and he was saying that Donald Trump was planning on running in 2012, but decided not to, and his whole 2016, uh, you know, message and the persona was all decided back in 2012, and there was some sort of negotiation with the Republican Party that they they're fair to him or he runs as an independent, something along those lines.
That
I
would
don't
make sense.
I don't know how true it is. It sounds plausible though.
Well, I think the whole birther episode really embarrassed him, and especially at that White House Correspondents' Dinner. So it would have been a bad idea, especially because this was supposed to be the lead up to him announcing his candidacy. So
Yeah,
I'm sure that was just so embarrassing, so damaging that he was like, "All right, I can't do it this time, so I gotta
next
wait
time.
another 4 years."
Yeah, it's fascinating if you look back at 2012 and both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders almost ran.
Yeah, your uncle's probably not wrong though, because so many of those backroom deals happen. I
Yeah,
mean, a lot of people think it happened with John McCain and Mitt Romney, that if John McCain lost in 2008, that Mitt Romney would get it in 2012, and you
Obama,
know,
Hillary.
yeah, definitely Obama, Hillary, that kind of
There's
stuff, that
zero
kind of
doubt
thing.
in my mind that that was what happened.
Yeah,
Oh,
and yeah, I mean that's a big reason why Joe Biden didn't run.
yeah.
So
Oh, but yeah, I'm totally convinced that's why Joe Biden didn't run.
what do you think of to wrap this up, because we only have a few minutes left? What do you think of Tom Perez uh, becoming the DNC chair?
Well, so I have a few issues with that. So, for starters, you know, uh, Keith Ellison threw his hat in the ring first, and he was presumed to be the winner before Barack Obama um, convinced Tom Perez to run. But the whole time that people were supporting Tom Perez, they were saying he's the exact same as Keith Ellison. They're just as progressive as each other. Great. So then why do you need the second candidate? And if you look at why that is, Tom, one sec. There's a Israeli Democratic like mega donor. Uh, one sec. I'm gonna find his name. And this individual,
Is it Alan Dershowitz?
uh, Israeli Democratic. So, it might be. I forget his name. Haim Saban. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Um, Haim Saban. So Haim Saban opposed Keith Ellison on grounds that Keith Ellison was anti-Israel. I'm not really sure why he's perceived that way. I haven't done a lot of digging into that. But regardless, the fact that a donor has so much sway over the party that it went from rallied around this guy having a consensus candidate to, the party splitting, and they ended up going with a different guy who represents the Democratic establishment, so to speak, a lot more. Um, I don't know. I find it really frustrating that Democrats don't learn their lesson that you need to speak to this, progressive, energetic wing of the party. It frustrates me that they don't learn that, and at the same time, uh, I think that if Keith Ellison condemned Israel's actions towards Palestine and some of their more aggressive foreign policy, I think that he's right to do that, and he shouldn't be punished for doing that. And I think that's bothersome as well.
See, I agree entirely with you on it. And what really irks me about the whole thing is that when Keith Ellison announced that he was running, essentially most of the Democratic establishment, at least elected officials, including Chuck Schumer, rallied behind him and said, hey, basically this is a bone we can throw to the base. Because all in all, the DNC chairmanship isn't actually that powerful. It's more of a figurehead than anything, but they are very influential and critical in in financing, in fundraising, as well as organization. Now, Keith Ellison
and creating a party.
is
One sec, and creating a party flat platform, which is very important.
yeah, and it was a choice between Tom Perez, someone with no organizing experience, very little fundraising experience, very little platform experiences, versus Keith Ellison, who is essentially the Barack Obama of Minneapolis, and in terms of community organizing. And again, the DNC chairmanship is very much an organizing position. And the party couldn't even give the base that. This small bone that they could throw to the base to keep them happy, to make it seem like, yes, we finally have a victory in some way. They couldn't even do that. They said, no, we have to have our guy in there because we can only trust him.
But it's not even that it's their guy, it's that it's a Israeli mega donors guy, and he didn't want Keith Ellison because Keith Ellison is a Muslim. That is very bothersome.
Yeah, and it wasn't because, they like to say, oh, it's because, he's anti-Israel. No, virtually no congressman or senator or really anybody in the United States who isn't a skinhead, most people aren't anti-Israel. Just because you say, hey, maybe they shouldn't be killing innocent people in Palestine and having illegal settlements, that's not anti-Israel or pro-Palestine. That's being common sense and saying, hey, Israel does some bad things too.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the things that we condemn Iran for, an illegal nuclear program, um, human rights violations, something of an imperialist foreign policy on surrounding countries. And Israel does those exact same things. The Israeli settlements in Palestine are expressly considered illegal by the United Nations. Or you look at how they, when they took that land in the first place, they slaughtered thousands of Palestinians. They have up to 80 illegal nuclear warheads that we overlook. The fact that we're allowing a state to commit those types of, flagrant violations of international law while we go to war with other countries for the same thing is bothersome. And the fact that, we're choosing a guy who backs that over who's not to mind. Actually, no, I'm sorry. But I was going to say something wrong. But we're choosing a millionaire or a billionaire, I think, who backs those kinds of behaviors and thinks that we should be encouraging them over, the party base. That's very frustrating. And I believe that if the Democrats continue down the road they're on, then they're going to be a permanent opposition party.
Yeah, when Tom Perez won, I was just like, do you guys want to lose? Like, is that what you want to do? Because again, DNC chairmanship, very symbolic, doesn't actually do too much. Arguably, Senate Minority Leader is a more powerful position.
Oh, I'd agree.
In regards to how in the Democrats' current situation.
Yeah.
But what the Democrats really need right now is unity, and Keith Ellison would have been acceptable to a lot of uh, the, you know, Hillary, for all intents and purposes, Hillary establishment people who supported Hillary through the primaries and
Yeah,
were fans of Hillary, that 55% of the party, and obviously would have been a great, great for Bernie people,
that Bernie
the more
endorsed him.
progressive wing. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that Tom Perez is expressly a bad guy. I mean, of all the establishment figures they could have picked, he's a lot better than anybody else. But could
He
have had Keith Ellison, who is arguably better, and no, they couldn't even do that. And now, because of that, again, despite the DNC chairmanship being not as powerful as maybe people might think, plenty of young progressive people are going to say and have said, you know what, screw it.
yeah.
They're so petty, they're so power hungry to keeping the party for their own that we can't deal anymore.
Well,
We're leaving. We can't be Democrats anymore.
I think that the thing to keep sight of is the fact that everyone said Tom Perez is just as progressive, just as liberal as Keith Ellison. And if that were true, or if that is true, one, why have two candidates run in the first place? Actually, I don't have a number two, so never mind. But just why have the second guy throw his hat in the ring? I mean, when Hillary was considering Tom Perez for VP, I looked into him, his background, his views, and personally, I think he's an acceptable DNC chair. I just think that the context he was chosen in is the problem.
Most definitely. Again, like Matt and I are basically saying, like of all the people the establishment could have picked to back, he's probably the best they could have chosen, the most progressive they
Arguably,
could have
yeah,
chosen. But again, the main functions of the DNC and the DNC chair is to fundraise, to organize, and to elect people. Keith Ellison has great experience in all three of those areas.
yeah, he has experience with
Tom
babes.
Tom Perez has none.
Tom Perez has
And
never ran an election. He's never
exactly.
run for office.
Well, he did once, and I think he either dropped out or lost.
Oh, I
But that
haven't
was
heard that. Yeah, he's never won an election though. He's
that
never
was
had.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, say what you may about Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and I trust me, I'm no fan of her.
Oh, I've got a lot to
But
say about her.
yeah, but hey, at least she, had experience. She was a congresswoman. At least she had experience in electoral politics, in fundraising, and in organizing. Like you can't say she didn't. So at least
I
she
can
was
say
good in that capacity.
I wouldn't say she was good at it if you look at her leadership. Democrats
Well, yeah,
lost
she wasn't necessarily good
everything.
at it, but at least she had experience in it. Like this is a guy who, he didn't even try. You were just like, this guy
Yeah.
there. It's like, what are we doing now? Just picking people up off the street and saying, hey, you want to run for Congress?
Well, I mean, the Democrats don't really know what to do right now because say what you will about the Republican Party, they've successfully channeled this whole populist uprising in their party. The Tea Party, Freedom Caucus, these elements of their party, they're now channeling them and trying to build a coherent agenda based off of what these people have to say. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. Um, the issue is that the Democrats have, for decades now, instead of doing what the base wants, which is move in a more progressive direction, they've kept moving in a more, they've had this undertaken a huge rightward shift. I'd argue since, Bill Clinton was president.
I'd argue since Ronald Reagan.
Well, yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so for the last, 40 years now, 30 years now, they've been having this, they've been taking this huge rightward shift in their politics, and it's made them a less and less attractive party to their base because their base wants, their base is genuinely more progressive than the party. If you look at any polling, um, the majority of people want the Democratic Party to move in a more progressive direction. The majority of people are for debt-free college and single-payer health care and climate change and action on the climate issues. They're all for these things, but the party is just filling the vacuum that the Republican Party moving further right has left among moderates. And, that's not going to generate excitement in your party. I think that they need to, do some serious self-reflection and say, what party are we? Are we a center-right party, or are we a genuinely progressive party? Because on the worldwide spectrum, the Democratic Party, so the Republican Party is considered far-right. The Democratic Party is considered center to center-right. And that's ironic in my opinion, because here you have all these people saying, "Oh, Obama's a Marxist." I mean,
to some extent, I wish.
I mean, not necessarily Marxist, but something. I don't know, a Noam Chomsky-esque person, anarchist.
If he was Noam Chomsky, then people would be burning down buildings.
I mean, no, I'd back Noam Chomsky for president. I mean, if he had decided to run 20 years ago when he was Bernie Sanders' age.
Where? All right. Well, thank you, Matt, very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Thank you for having me.
And you're welcome back as whenever you want, whenever you'd like, of course.
All right. Yeah, dude. Have a good night. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, you too. And thank you all for listening. As always, remember, have malice toward none.